Jews in America are the target of 58% of all religiously motivated hate crimes in the US, despite their mere 2% of the population. These are statistics from 2019. The 2020 numbers are marginally lower than 29, but they still come in around 57% of all religiously motivated hate crimes and 13% of all hate crimes nationwide. Tonight on Diverse Talking Heads podcast, we will talk about anti-Semitism. How did it get started? Why is it even a thing? And where do we go from here? Only on Diverse Talking Heads podcast. All right, welcome everyone to Diverse Talking Heads podcast. I'm your host, Calvin Gibbs, and we are so thankful that you decided to click on our podcast today. We have a discussion going on today that I believe is very relevant for our times. Our topic tonight is anti-Semitism. Yes, there's been a lot of hate in the country, a lot of hate towards Black people, towards people of Asian descent, and tonight we're going to talk about Jewish people. Here today we have a very talented panel of experts that will give us their thoughts on anti-Semitism. Please welcome. I'd like to welcome Amy to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And we also have Charlie.
Calvin, thanks for having me.
Great. Welcome, Charlie. We also have Dan.
Hello, welcome. Good to see everyone.
All right. And we have a new panelist joining us for the first time today, JD.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you all. So let's get right to this. We heard the data in the beginning of the show. The data also shows that Jews constitute the third largest target of hate crimes of all minorities in this entire country. That's more than Hispanics, more than Muslims, more than Asians, more than virtually every other group. I'm going to ask Dan, if you had to summarize, what is anti-Semitism?
So anti-Semitism is almost always a conspiracy theory. It's always tied in with conspiracy. And as we well know, the nice thing about conspiracy is it has all the answers for you without having to think. So it talks about controlling, being puppet masters, making all these kind of things. You see it in all walks of life, and you see it across the political spectrum. On the right, it is the fundamental basis of most white power groups is anti-Semitism, and they build from there. You might remember the Jews will not replace us. It's replacement theory, where they believe that there's this group of Jews who control the world, and they will take and get rid of the white people and replace them with brown and black people. That's replacement theory. On the left, we have tied in with things that happen in the Middle East and elsewhere. We have anti-Semitism. We're not even considered a minority in much of the left today. So you can see it comes from all different. And the interesting thing about it is a lot of it's underground. You don't see it. There weren't necessarily laws against Jews, but they were barred from places. They couldn't get into professions. I used to, up until last year, I lived in a house that was about 100 years old. And the early deed said that you could not sell that house to Black Jews and dogs. Nice to be thrown in with all that. So it's been part of our culture for a very long time. And anti-Semitism and Jews themselves predate Western civilization. So we don't fit nicely into your categories. We like in this country to fit things into sort of racial categories and other categories, but we don't fit because we are a people and a religion and a nation all at the same time. And that is unique.
That is unique. And I want to go back to what you said about conspiracy theories. You know, my research shows that the hatred of Jews has a direct tie to conspiracy beliefs, especially those in the past era. But oftentimes, those theories, those conspiracy theories, are only shared by tiny numbers of people that's like on the fringe of society. Of course, you know, a lot of damage can be done because of that, like in Oklahoma and the World Trade Center. It doesn't take a lot of people to cause a lot more damage. But when those extremists start talking about they hate Jews, how do they recognize Jews outside of, let's say, a religious building or a religious organization? For example, what I'm trying to say, to break it down like a fraction, is, you know, there could be a room full of white guys. How the hell would a person know who is Jewish, who to hate? If I walk into a room, they automatically know that's a Black guy, put the hate on. But, you know, Dan and Charlie, if you guys walked in the room, I couldn't tell if one of you were Jews. How do you guide hatred for someone that you can't even distinguish?
Well, there are sometimes just, you know, things you wear, things like that, but there's a misconception that Jews are white. That's a premise that I think is incorrect to start with. We're everything, we're everywhere. You know, people would be surprised to hear that 60% of the Jews in Israel are from the Middle East or Africa. So they're brown and black, okay? We have that here also. I have to tell you that, to me, white is a Christian European concept because Jews were never accepted there either. So you're right, you won't necessarily know right away. And I, for one, can pass as white. But I think I have to tell you, in today's world, something I didn't do in the past is I don't go out with things that are identifiably Jewish. I don't wave an Israeli flag. I don't wear a Jewish star anymore. I'm proud of who I am, and I do things, but I have to tell you, When I go to synagogue now, we have an armed guard, and I have a security surcharge that I pay to my synagogue. So you're right, they don't necessarily know right away who it is. And that's probably why you see a lot of damage on institutions themselves. But if somebody started talking to me, they'd probably know right away, because I hold that pride and I hold 4,000-year-old tradition.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I also have a first cousin, who is a Black Israelite. And yeah, my my family Thanksgivings are very, very interesting, to say the least. But that's another show. I want to move a little bit and talk about um, the disagreement over the policy towards the state of Israel, the support of Israel as a Jewish homeland, and the expression Zionist. I heard that it's often used as an anti-Semitic code word for Jew. I see Amy nodding. Can somebody speak on that? Is it true? Do you have any thoughts on it? False?
I mean, whenever I hear the term, I'm certainly not an expert, so I don't want to overstep my bounds. But as somebody who is not Jewish, hearing that term, to me, it sounds like you would have just said extremist if that was what you meant, or some other term, but that does have a particular charge against it. The term Zionist against Jewish people. That is how I understand that term is used, is that it's not meant in kind of a friendly way, that there's something behind it when you're choosing to use that particular word. So yeah, that was why you saw me nodding.
Okay. Is anti-Semitism a form of racism?
It feels like yes, and like yes plus more, like not just a form of racism, a form of broad hatred. Again, not wanting to overstep, but my perspective is that, I mean, I think I don't know why there would be any argument against it being a form of racism, and plus just a form of very broad prejudiced hatred founded on falsehoods.
So many people in Europe thought that the white race was better than other races. But do Jews belong to a separate race? Because racism is based on the idea, right, that there's different human qualities. There's different human races. There's the white race, there's the yellow race, there's the black race, there's the red race. So people are of the same race are assumed to share certain characteristics, right? So is being a Jew a race?
Well, they were certainly treated that way in Europe, but as I said in the beginning, we don't fit the categories. So when you're trying to overlay our traditional thoughts of race on Jews, it doesn't quite fit. And so it's a different kind of prejudice. And I think you need to look at it as a different way. We've been around a long time and been hated by a lot of different groups. I think it's important not to shove a category in. And I think that's where the understanding of it becomes difficult. Just like I was saying, on the left, I'm a progressive and I'm a Zionist. To me, saying that you don't recognize that my people are indigenous to that part of the world is a racist statement. However, I understand there's people who disagree. But I have been told many times that I cannot be part of progressive causes if I remain a Zionist. I personally find that offensive and I find that ridiculous.
Yes.
But it partly because of that fitting into a particular idea of one side is white and one side